Hello and good morning, Year 8, and welcome to this video which is going to help you to create a database to keep track of all of the residents of Springfield. Now, each character has a trump card containing information including these categories: whether they're a good listener, what their personal hygiene is like, intelligence quotient or how much intelligence they have, shamelessness, huggability, and how prone they are to mayhem. And these will be given a certain number. So what we're going to do is create a database which actually stores all of this information about each of the Simpsons characters. So what we're going to be doing is creating a database using Microsoft Access. And what we're going to be doing then is we're going to be entering the information from the top trump card, and then we'll be swapping them around to enter all of the other information into the database. So by the end we should have 30 different Simpsons characters in our database with all of their relevant information. So then let's get started. So what we need to do is go to All Programs, Microsoft Office, and we're going to be choosing the first option that we have here, which is Microsoft Access 2010. So I'm going to open that, and you'll be presented with this screen here. And what should be selected as the default is a blank database, because we're going to be creating this database from very, very beginning, right from scratch. Now, what's a bit unusual about Access to create a database is that unlike other Microsoft Office applications, we actually have to choose the save location before we start creating the document itself. So what I can do here now, and bearing in mind you should have created a folder named Simpsons Database inside your ICT folder. If not, pause the video and do that quickly now. And I'm going to click on this little folder icon to browse all of my current folders. So I'm going to go to my home drive, and I'm going to locate that Simpsons Database folder that I've created. And there it is, Simpsons Database. So I'm going to double click it, and now it's going to save it inside that folder. But I need to give it a good name, so I'm going to call it Simpsons Database. And there we have it. So it's saved as Simpsons Database at the moment. Press OK, and you can see that it changes here. It's now saved to my home drive in the Simpsons Database folder, and the database itself is called Simpsons Database. So all I need to do now is start creating it. So I click Create, and I've been brought onto this screen here. And this screen at the moment doesn't really look like much. This is actually called Datasheet View. And if I go up to the top left corner, we can see I've got different views I can look at. If I click on the drop down menu, I've got Datasheet View, which I'm currently in. As you can see, it's highlighted. And I've also got Design View. So Design View, which I'll show you in a moment, is where we create the actual structure of our database and what it will look like. Datasheet View is where we will enter ultimately all of the information about the different characters. So what I'm going to do now is choose Design View, so I can start designing my database. And it's going to ask me to save the table, and I'm going to call it Simpsons Table. So this is a separate table within the database, because we could have multiple different tables, but I'm going to have this one called Simpsons Table. And now I'm in my design view of the database, and this is where we're going to be creating our database from scratch. So what we have here is field name and data type. And I'll be explaining data type in a moment, but if we look at field name here, let's say for example I take a trump card that I've got in my hand. So I've got Homer Simpson. So what I'm going to need to have is a Homer Simpson record. Now a database is made up of individual records. So if we think about Simpsons characters, Homer Simpson would have a record, Lisa Simpson would have a record, Bart Simpson would have a record, Marge Simpson would have a record, and so on and so on and so on. And that record in the database would contain all the information we need to know about them. So let's think about those categories now. So we need to have their character name, and we also need to have, based on the information on the trump card, whether they're a good listener, We also need to know what their personal hygiene is like. Can't type today, not very good. We also need to know what their intelligence, or how much intelligence they have. An intelligence quotient just means how much intelligence they have. Their shamelessness. Their huggability. And also how prone to mayhem they are. So what I've got now is my categories, and this will basically form a table. So if I go into datasheet view, it'll ask me to save the table. Of course I want it to. And now you can see here that it's added those the field names to my fields here. So I've got a field for character name, and if I hover over there and just double click, you can see that it stretches it out, so you can see the whole, oops, there we are, we can see the whole field name, like so. And what I would do now is obviously I would insert my character name there, and then I would say what their rating is as a good listener, what their personal hygiene level is, how much intelligence they have, their shamelessness, and so on. And I would build up a profile here of how to do that. Now, if I go into design view, I'm going to show you something called data types. Now, what we can do to reduce errors in the database is use something called data types. So, character name, I could choose text, number, date or time, currency. I've got something called auto number, which I've got up here, and I'll explain that in a moment. Yes, no. And what these do is they allow a specific type of data to be entered into this field. So if I have text, it means I can enter anything mixed with a mixture of letters and numbers. If I check numbers, I can actually only type numbers into the database. If I do date and time, it means I can enter anything that's a date or a time. If it's currency, it'll only allow me to type in a number, but it will automatically put a pound sign in front of the number. Then I've got a yes-no number, or yes-no option, I should say, sorry. Yes-no option means that I would ask a question which requires a yes-no answer. So, is Homer Simpson lazy? Yes or no? And then you could check the box to say yes or no. So I'm going to say here is text, because a name is going to be made up of letters. So I'm going to choose text. Now, the ratings for good listener, personal hygiene are all out. They're basically numbers. So I'm going to choose number for good listener, number for personal hygiene, number here for intelligence quotient, number for shamelessness, number for huggability, and number for how prone to mayhem they are. So that'll only let me enter numbers into that field now, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a moment. So if I go back into datasheet view, I want to save the table. If I go into character name here now, I could type in, let's say I'll type in Homer Simpson. And what I want to do now for good listener, and I'm going to show you how the data type works. Because I've set it as number, if I typed in a letter, like L, and I tried to go into the next field, it says the value you entered does not match the data type in this column. So it prompts me to change it. So I'm going to change that for a number, and I would put in there, say, good listener. He's probably not a very good listener, so I'm going to say 1. But this will actually be on the card that you have, so you'll be able to enter these in accurately. Personal hygiene, I imagine, is not great, so I'm going to put 1. Intelligence quotient, it's not looking good for him. I'm going to put 1 in there as well. Shamelessness, he's probably got quite a lot of that, so I'll go for a 9. Huggability, he's probably got about a 6. And prone to mayhem, big on that one, so I'll go for 10. But obviously these are written on the cards, and you just have to fill them in as they say on the top trump card. So now we can see how this record works. If I put in there, I'm going to put Lisa Simpson. Now you can see that she has got a separate record. Homer's got his own record with his information. Lisa's got her own record with information. And the records go across like this. And we just enter the appropriate data into the particular field. So then, the one thing I was going to show you, if I go into design view again, was auto number. And you can see here there's a little key at the top, okay, next to the ID field. And the reason for this being is we give them a unique identification number. So you watch now, if I start typing Bart, it automatically gave him a 3 because it's an auto number. And it's important to have unique identification numbers for each character. And the best way to think about this is, what if two people in the database had the same name? Okay, and you could say then, well, they might have a different date of birth. But then, let's think about what if they were identical twins? There may be other attributes which could separate them, but what we need to do really is give them a unique identification number so that if we look through the database, we can see exactly who is who. And a unique identification number is useful in that way. So all you need to do now is start entering your information from your top trump card. And I'm just making these up off the top of my head. But you need to enter the information across, and then you need to go around and swap cards with everybody else in the class until you've got all 30 characters in the database. So you should have 30 numbers going down here and 30 records altogether. So good luck with that.